That's pretty correct. Finally into game. I guess someone took a break. But we're here for a TVZ. In the bottom left of Pillars of Gold, we have the red Terran Foxer. And on the top right, as the blue Zerg, it is Bioice. So I kind of mentioned that maybe the cheesy Zerg's gonna have more difficulty cheesing the Terrans, but I'm not sure Bioice is really like, even before the previous game where he just did a straight up macro thing, even before that, I wouldn't really pin Bioice as just cheesing, always trying to win with cheese. Like, he is just aggressive more than he's just super cheesy. There's people who will always open up pool first into something stupid, or proxy hatch, Spinecrawler Rush, or something like that. And there's people who will, you know, they can do that, but it's so much more about the mid game. In this case, for this matchup, I mean, mid-game all-ins, like, yeah, I mean, Ling Roach Ravager, classic all-in, right? So that could happen, but maybe even just a fast Spire in ways can be very obnoxious, even though it's not at all-in-y. Yeah. I don't know, we'll see. Like, if you want to try and do just a bunch of early attacks against Terran, it's typically not going to be as convoluted, I would say, as versus Protoss. I mean, I really do think that Protoss has a little more volatility facing some of those. I mean, one, they don't have just an instant scan. Like, in the worst case scenario, a Terran could scan to try and figure things out. Not that we ever want to, we don't. But, like, second case, we have things called doors. So, there's no, like, having a Zealot and being like, well, I am 99.99999% sure that Zealot fits. And then it's like turned to the side, like, Ling flips in, and you're like, what? Why? There's none of that. And then I think we just have we're more adaptive. That's literally what the Terran's thing is. It can go in all different directions. So, assuming you get the Scout, of course, and that is most important. So Foxer, gonna go with this Reaper after SCV Scout. Not that SCV Scouting is so uncommon, but I think that there might be SCV Scouts all around this series. And as a second gas, Foxer also is going to go up to a starport, and we'll see if he just always goes into Hellion Banshee. If he does, then I'm going to assume that he's faced Bioice a couple times, and just is like always going to be playing it safe. Again, I don't think Bioice is always the type of person to go for the mid-game all-in, but Foxer's build might actually be able to tell us something. Not to say that Banshee openers are always defensive. Some people do like them, just to mix it in, but I think it is mixing in the idea that it could be defensive. Is what's nice about it. Does it sometimes grab like 10 drones when it shouldn't have? Sure, but not often. The Reaper just literally is staying there. He should control it though. It's a little scary. Like, yes, this will see anything coming out, but it also means that if you're not paying attention for a full second, someone's gonna get surrounded. No tech lab yet. Actually building into Marines, I do wonder about this. What? You don't usually see someone position the starport to hug the barracks. So with a tech lab and a liberator, I think it is just gonna be sim lib. Hellion's doing their best to get not just maybe some damage done. It's usually unlikely with two Hellions. It can happen, but I think more importantly getting the Scout. Like, if you send the two Hellions out immediately, sometimes that means you don't have them for like 6 Lings darting in. It can be very annoying. You don't really get too powerful of shots on the drones, because drones don't get one shot by 2 Hellions. But you do get Scouting. If you send those first 2 Hellions right across the map, you can see Roach is on the way. And then the Reaper also sacrificed itself to get into the main. So I am definitely seeing a lot of things here that Foxer is he's definitely covering his bases, okay? Not that it's never a good idea. Not that it's never not a good idea. Okay, that was the dumbest statement I've ever made. It's always a good idea to have good scouting. But I feel like he's going above and beyond. There's actually nothing to scout, though. Bioice, in fact, is going to go for double evolution chamber. So kind of like one of the most basic builds you can do. Nothing surprising about this. I guess in some cases having 1/1 lings is like, oh shit, that's actually kind of, that's stronger than I imagined, but it's not like even having a faster Spire. And Foxer did just go for a Stim, Liberator, building Marines while he can, going into barracks. No swap off onto a tech lab, just using his factory to build reactors, which is very appropriate because he scouted nothing to be afraid of. Hellions are actually maybe trying to get some drone kills, but they also might have overinvested. Seems like 8's pretty popular nowadays for people. I guess he got a supply block. He's only actually at 7, but anyways. 8's pretty popular for people now as opposed to 6, but 6 is still your usual standard. Liberator also got tapped already. It's gonna get tapped again. Could just die if he's not paying attention. Yeah. He's paying attention though. Bailey Nest and Lair started up together, so it can go immediately into centrifugal hooks. 4th base is probably fine. It's quite low, but Hellions don't kill it very fast. And Foxer has actually not even swapped off his factory to more barracks. He actually has just used this reactor to build right into Wood of Mines. So quite a few Wood of Mines are going to be coming with his first push. I actually don't really mind the scan. I mean, I look, it's not very successful, and I would say it hardly is against the queens actually paying attention. But I think he's kind of made his intentions clear as to where he wants to push. He's trying to clear a creep spread over there, then be afraid of a push over there. Liberator manages to finally dodge out those queens and then just tucks around, goes back to the 3rd. He's going to target fire down the drone specifically. It would have been one shot less than needed to kill that queen, so the drones are the best thing he's going to get. Push is already here, and it's got a couple of Widow Mines, man. It's actually kind of scary. Combat Shield isn't quite done, but it's finishing up with 1/1. We got an Armory actually done, so these are going to be Hellbats. We also have a really big run by Bioice. Sometimes a very risky thing to do, but he actually gets into the natural as well, and into the main. It's going to be so obnoxious to clean up. But can he actually hold on the other side of the map? It looks like that's an absolute yes. The Baneling's not getting the best connections, as the last-minute split was just barely good enough. I was really worried, but that last-minute split into the target fire, nope, still not going to be good enough. More Banelings form up. Many of them do collide on those Hellbats, and Foxer still has some Marines left over, but I think that's going to be it. GG, 30 SCVs were dying back at home. It really was just like the only option was a base trade, and it did not go well. Bioice cleaned that first game up real fast. Hello. Stream says hi. We missed you. He's been super needy. Game 2 already set up, gonna be on Death Aura. Both players having a pretty good macro game. Nothing really disturbed either player's setup. No Hellions killing 10 drones. No Hellions getting surprised and caught out in the open. But Bioice's decision to go for a big ol' run by, I don't think Foxer was really considering that as an option. It was, and I would, you know, it's not that I blame him. It's not like, oh, you know, dummy, lings do run bys, but it is kind of dangerous for Bioice to do that. If you only have Banelings, even if you have surgical hooks, which he didn't have that. So he had only slow Banelings. That can be easy for the Terrans to clean up. So you always need that Ling buffer in front. So it wasn't just that Bioice did a Ling run by, it's that he did it with like 30 Lings. That was really the risky part about it. But he had enough Banelings morphing, he had all of his queens in place to transfuses, and he did have just enough Lings to really help out. Plus creep spread that even if it had been cleaned up, takes time to receive.
Forces detected. So. Arming raid defenses.
Really sucky way to lose, though. It basically feels like you're just getting started in TVZ and then it's already over. Thank you, Chicks TV, for that raid. Welcome, everyone. I did say that Bioice has a very good shot against Foxer. Just because I am still more familiar with Bioice, even though we don't really see either one of these players too often. I have seen more Bioice. I know that Foxer's been around for quite a long time, because what StarCraft 2 player hasn't. But has never really been able to push himself into the forefront. Maybe a couple of decent tournament results here and there, but as far as like online tournaments or NA tournaments, yes. Both of them would love a chance to show what they can do on the actual big stage, when people actually start to remember your name and to see what you're like. But I would say that even though Bioice, yeah, I think he's going to win against Foxer, whether it's with just pure macro, maybe a cheese here and there. I'm not sure either one of these guys is going to be the actual qualifiee. Is that a word? I don't think they're going to be the person that qualifies. I mean, it's going to be tight. It's going to be tough. So their eventual opponent, and I think would either be Starkiller or Jon Snow. I mean, with ZvZ, I think it's very possible that Jon Snow loses, even though we recognize his name more. It actually said Starkiller, I think, is like really scary. Maybe I'm even thinking Starkiller will win that. But then I have no idea who Ruiichi is. So I assume that Starkiller Jon Snow will be the semifinalist. And then after this, Bioice would have to face Riser, again, if he were to win 2-0. And that's also going to be kind of difficult to do. It's a Protoss player. As I said in the previous series, no one is a shoo-in. Semper might have been the closest thing to like, oh yeah, he gets through, to a good guess. It might have been the closest thing to a good guess. I don't know if it's anything shoo-in, but as we can see, we're here now, and Semper has not made it through. So who knows what's gonna happen? You do know that there's a macro game, once again. No one doing anything specifically cheesy or weird. We actually have a Raven on the way, so I mean, that's a little odd, but it's definitely not cheesy. Bioice getting to a very good number of queens. He's got 2 overlords on the other side of the map, so he's gotten like pretty much guaranteed scouting of what's really gonna happen. Especially because it, again, is not something weird. No armory hidden, no fusion core hidden. He might even actually be able to see the Raven pop out and just have maybe a better idea of how he's going to tackle that mentally, but he certainly has the actual tools to defend against it, so it's not that big of a deal. An auto turret here or there will not change the game too much. Yeah, I hope so. That's nice. That's nice. Because I think the concern with seeing a tech lab on a starport and no tech lab spinning is that it's a battle cruiser. So to confirm that's a Raven, that's actually quite nice. And a second Raven, oh, I don't know about that. That's not, is that really a thing? I feel like that was a thing a couple of years ago. I remember Special playing around with Ravens heavily, and maybe even a double Raven opener, but usually it's a single Raven nowadays, and that's for clearing up creep and a little bit of extra damage on top of queens sometimes. Maybe a little bit of harassment as they go across the map. Back in the season with Abyssal Reef, if you guys remember that, so like 3 years ago or something like that. 4 years ago? Who knows? There was a double Raven opener. But that was because A, Abyssal Reef had some crazy spots for auto turret harassment, and B, auto turrets had a longer range for other casts than they do now. The first Raven is indeed going straight for that harassment. Unfortunately, it no longer has anything to help distract. Those Hellions going down like they did, while not going to end the game for Foxer, really was a kind of a disaster as far as the early game goes. No more harassment, no more clearing up creep, no Hellbats, no distractions so that the Raven could get some more harassment done. The second Raven's even going to be scouted here. So Foxer might be a little more, or sorry, Bioice might be a little more on point against the harassment. I guess there's only so much you can do. It is a test of multitasking eventually, but you gotta consider that's 400 gas, right? Let's see what it would have directly impacted. I think his engineering base are later. Maybe a little bit? Actually, I'm not even sure they are. 1-1 lining up with combat shield is pretty normal. Definitely affected something, though. I can't see what yet, though. I'm not that clued into the exact build order. Even though people are always like, oh, Terrans don't need gas. What are you talking about? Just build Ravens all day long. That's not really true. Auto turret harassment hasn't done a whole lot so far, it looks like. Bioice, oh, now taking some drone losses. There we go. 5 drones going down. Bioice has gone into some typical hooks. He has a Spire that is finished and just needs to start producing mutas, so it was a faster Spire build. And then into the upgrades. Foxer is already ready to go with the push. It's a single tank, so maybe it was the factory production that was cut, which would make sense. So instead of 2 tanks, single tank, and his medevacs are going to reveal his push out there. So Bioice actually very awkwardly with 1,000 minerals in the bank might have just messed up his build. Like the Ravens didn't seem like they were doing a whole lot, but maybe they just messed up his actual, his injects or the cleanliness of his build. Banelings finish up, target firing them. Almost got every single one. That was almost going to be real pro gamer moves, but didn't quite get every single one. He certainly left there with all of his Marines intact, so the Muta's trying to chase this down, end up not getting a tank. They don't get the medevac, and they in fact lose one of their own in that attempt to clear things up. The Ravens go back in for more auto turret harassment, and now it draws the Mutas out of position from the front lines. Queen's helping out their best on the front, and without combat shields, I guess they can help a little, but usually they are more so targeting the medevacs. And there you go. Looks like the Mutas have finally cleaned up those Ravens. Both of them? Oh no, one is actually on the front lines with them. Another Muta goes down. Bioice was not really that well set up to defend this. His creep strat wasn't that impressive. And not because the Ravens helped clear up the creep in the front lines, but they basically kept the Queens on the back. So there was a lot of, like, not direct results, I guess, for the Raven, but a lot of indirect results for the Raven. Bioice tries to go for a run-by, and Foxer, I think, saw a little bit of a glimpse of it, so he's got units actually responding, so that's not going to work out this time. Losing a 4th base is a pretty big deal. He does have a 4th, again, on the way over to the right side, and might even double expand once he clears this up, if he clears this up. But Bioice is really missing that creep spread. Now there's 2 tanks in the front lines, because that first one barely didn't die. Thought about going after the Marines, realizing it wouldn't work, loses a couple of units, a Queen goes down again. Bioice is in some serious trouble. Foxer, I think I wasn't a believer in the Ravens, but I think he really screwed up Bioice's just macro. Like, all the things that you really have to pay attention to one person's side of things. You gotta be in their perspective, you gotta be slowing down the game and being like, oh, look at that, he missed an inject, oh, look at that. He has 50 energy on all his Queens, he's not creep spreading. I think it was doing all of that. So that Bioice just absolutely was not prepared for what ended up being also a very well-timed follow-up. That was a good build from Foxer. And now he's up 60 supply, which... yeah. You'd have to screw up a lot to lose 60 supply. Fourth base goes down again, so another one pops up to the left. These Mutas find the 3rd orbital, so SCVs are going to go down. Foxer never committed to missile turrets because he was applying so much pressure. That is actually usually the right call. Eventually it can bite you in the butt, which is exactly what's happening here as more SCVs go down, but I know it's hard to tell right now for the Terran player's perspective, but he is absolutely winning hardcore. Right now you're not sure if they actually somehow are on 150 supply or not. Mutas are finally going to get cleaned up as some Marines return home. There really weren't that many Mutas to begin with. It was just that little SAC defense from Foxer. And then I think they finally saw that there's a 4th command center already done. The Muta losses might not cause the GG, but Bioice down at a sub 100 supply. Actually, I thought he was going to pull the trigger and just try and either make it or break it, but no, it's Foxer who retreats for now. Oh, okay. All right. GG. He didn't pull the trigger, but he still evaluated and was like, okay, I can't do anything. Wow, I really underestimated the indirect damage that was going down with the Ravens. Well played. Gotta keep that in mind next time we see that build. It sounds vaguely familiar now that I'm bringing it up again. Because, I mean, certainly that was one of the issues with the Abyssal Reef stuff I was talking about. Like, it either was doing direct damage, because it had, like, 3 cast range, I think, or something. Now it's only 1 cast range. And the ledges were absolutely abusive. But yeah, it was doing direct damage. It also was doing a lot of indirect damage. It really was a multitasking test. I think also maybe some years ago, some other people were doing 2 Ravens, maybe another map pool. Like, now that I brought it up, it sounds familiar. But I really wasn't thinking about it during that game. Thinking about how much had to be put in defending against it. Hello. Come on. The people want to see you. Hello. Come on. There he is. Oh, and then he leaves. And you can see his head. There you go. That's all you get. It's all tied up. In the top right is the red Terran. He is Foxer. In the bottom left has the blue Zerg. He is Bioice. As I said in the second game, I just know Bioice a little bit more, and he has shown... I mean, the third game versus Semper was a strong macro game. First game versus Foxer was a very strong, I guess, strategic game. The decision to go for the big Ling run by. From, you know, a macro perspective might look like the easiest thing in the world, and like, of course he would do that, and of course it worked out, sure, but actually it can be a dangerous thing to do. Yeah, I was just giving the benefit of the win here. I was giving the benefit of the doubt. It's not quite correct, but I just figured he would win. And then Foxer, in the first game, did have a very clean build. No complaints there. It was pretty clean. His scouting was very thorough. It was a good start for a Terran, but that's kind of the expectation. If nothing is happening, once you reach, you know, Masters 1 even, the idea is if nothing is happening, no Blink Stalker harassment, no Adepts, no Ling run-bys, whatever, like, you're supposed to be able to do your build fairly perfectly. You know, Innovation is still doing it better, but yeah. So I was like, yeah, that's great, but then Lings ran in and he died. But last game, actually forcing some other things to happen, actually testing Bioice a little bit more than just who completes their build order better and who makes the right decision, and then that's it. There's a little bit more involved in that game, so that did impress me. I suppose the other way to look at it certainly is that Bioice really did mess up. I'm guessing that at some point he probably realized, like, oh shit, like I have not creep spread? No, that's definitely not the way you put it. I definitely have not been creep spreading. I definitely have been missing injects. I definitely should have gotten my 4th base down faster. I definitely missed my macro hatch, you know, like something like that. But it may have taken him a while. It might have been like, wow, auditor harassment, really? Okay, fine, let's deal with it. And then second and third time, he's like, well, you're not doing anything. Like, what are you doing? And the 4th or 5th time, that's when the 5 drones went down, and that's when the push was on the way. And when the push was on the way, I think maybe that's when he's like, wow, my mutas were a bit later than I would have wanted. My gas income wasn't correctly, like, matched up with my mineral income. I haven't been building unit. Like, I think that kind of came maybe all at once. And he was like, oh, I just lost that game. So as weird as it is to say about Ravens, of all things, I do feel like you don't do that build again in the same series. Just because they'll change up their priorities a little bit more, maybe even allow their drones to die a little bit more if it means that they're getting everything else done correctly and they're totally prepared for a follow-up push. But Foxer, I mean, it's up to him. I would love to see a third option, not because of the whole, I think you'd be more prepared for the Raven thing, but also because I think it's just fantastic to see the Terrans who have a billion different options, who always have a different way of opening up. You know, whether it's slightly or in a very large way. So this time it's a Hellion into a Viking. And And then we might have a transfer over into Banshees. Nah, he's gonna go for Stim. Alright, so and then a Liberator maybe can come out of here. Bioice has been going for 2 Overlords on this side of the map, so that's 2 Overlords that are dead. That's fantastic. But also with the Viking plus Marines, it's now the fact that 2 Overlords just will not get information. Foxer goes for a 3rd CC. Just checking to see if it was later or earlier. It was usual. What else did he see? I guess he saw the lift off again just before the Overlord died. I mean, the Overlord still got all the information it wanted to, but what this Viking now does is clear up the drop paths. It's always been one of the ideas of the Viking, back when people called it the Polt Viking, which I always hated. But then again, I wasn't the biggest fan of Polt. I'm always, like, very hesitant to actually, in a cast, say that something is someone's build or someone's idea. You can say that it is similar to something, or someone has similar styles and similar skills and all that type of stuff, but whenever someone's like, this guy did it, he was the first one to do it, it's his thing, I'm like, well, really? No one else? Okay. Anywho, double evolution chambers. So Bioice going back to his first game build order. And that's not very surprising. I mean, it's possible that build order that he did in the second game, the faster Spire, was a little more of an uncomfortable build for him personally. It's not his favorite build, I don't know. Couldn't tell you on that one. But I really do think it was more about the Ravens doing a surprising amount of indirect damage. Regardless, going back to what worked out for you so well in the beginning, I think is totally fine. I mean, I don't know if he's trying to think of something that he could use the 114, because there's basically whatever the Terran is doing off of this setup. You can defend with the faster mutas, you can defend with the 1-1. But sometimes I wonder, with this setup, does Bioice even go into mutas? He could be a Zerg player who is still fond of Ling Baneling into Ultras. We didn't get to see in the first game because he won the game too fast. Boxer really likes to make the use out of his Hellions, man. He is micro-oriented, and that makes his smooth follow-up, his build order. Oh, caught him a supply block. That's my bad. His smooth follow-up even more impressive because he's also microing his heart out with his Hellions. So they're all a little bit low, but most of them are alive. That's usually pretty impressive. And I would love, yeah, I think he's doing exactly what I'm thinking. I would love if he just keeps his Hellions back at home in case the run-by is the option again. And he might even turn him into Hellbats just to make sure he's like, yeah, I'll absolutely look at this. This is exactly what he's thinking. Wouldn't mind to the natural, Hellions on the 3rd. They're going to see the Lings now, but I don't know if he actually saw them as he was microing on the front lines. I don't think he saw them. No, not like this. Actually, Bioice is like, well, the natural is wide open again, isn't it? It's not quite. Lots of Lings go down. Marines are being paid attention to. SCDs are pulled, and this is not at all like the first game. Fox are really learning from previous experiences. No, not the Wintermines. Okay, he's fine. And SCVs do go down, but that would have been a lot worse if the Wintermines had fired. Hellbats turning into Hellbats on the front line is not what you would expect, but here it's happening now. The Marines on the 3rd base actually out-microed all the Banelings that were available, and Bioice has not made any more. Bioice also, once again, not able to use all of his minerals and gases, forced to pull drones into Marines. And Foxer, man, he greatly improved on the first game. That first game was a hoax. It was false. It was Foxer. Because, like, it's faux. Anyways. It's, was not at all what Foxer could bring to the table, and this is some impressive stuff. Bioice holds on just barely, but it is not going to be a pretty follow-up. Foxer has a direct path on Oxide to get right to this now very vulnerable 3rd base, clear up even more creep spread. And Bioice still can't actually get all of his injects down. He can't spend his money. His queens are needed on the front lines. Even using a grenade to pop off some Banelings. You don't see that from anyone but basically Maru. Or maybe Gumiho when he was winning GSL. Look at this goddamn Reaper. Look at this Reaper. It's a hero on the front lines. Now it's finally going to die, but even soaks up a couple Banelings. Last minute split truly was last minute. And maybe there's just going to be too many Banelings to continue rattling across the map, but Foxer's not done, man. He's like, Maru who? I'm better. Or, well, since his name is Foxer, he might very well have been a big fan of Marine King Prime. Either way, Micro is looking impressive. Either way, it's all about the Micro. Even getting the last-minute wall-off against a Baneling run by is pretty sweet, to be honest. And now, maybe he can clear up the rest. He is going to split, so take minimal losses. Foxer did mess up his +2 armor, but Bioice has been under so much pressure that even though he could have had faster 2-2 with his fast upgrade opener, he is absolutely not going to have faster 2-2. He finally starts up his own +2 carapace, but that's about it. Foxer's got 4 bases, 3 more barracks on the way. Scans to see if that 4th base is up and running. It is indeed, and it's saturated. But even if, well, no, here we go, there we go. If he saw that this is the 5th base, he might even go ahead and just continue pushing from the left side. But since he's expanding to the right, I imagine he'll still continue abusing this choke point, abusing this lack of creep spread. Bioice has got a little bit of a breather to figure things out and to recover, which I think he is capable of doing. That was definitely scary, but Bioice has calmed things down. He's been able to rebuild his banelings. He's been able to rebuild his queen count, so he's injecting again. And I do think he has a chance to bring this back. I mean, all it's going to take is like a decent engagement for him. Down 20 armor supply is kind of an okay position. But loses queens, loses creep spread. His army is just not, it's not prepared. He actually did not realize that Foxer was moving on to the right side again. Widowmine's burrow, he's going to try and take care of them. They are pretty clumped up, so okay, all the Widowmines are now gone. Lots of banelings still left over, and Foxer is once again overstaying his welcome. But man, he loves to split, doesn't he? Splits to the very last Marine, soaking up every last baneling he possibly could. Bioice quickly pulling some queens away from maybe their inject duties to spread that creep again. That is kind of the hard decision you have to make when you're losing queens left and right. It's like, well, I could inject or I could creep spread. Both are pretty damn important. A double drop is headed off to the left side too, so Foxer is going to take care of this kind of with ease. That is the best option. Could have pushed in there as well if you wanted to expand this direction. That is possible, but yeah, the drop and then continue pushing into the 3rd is also a good option. And Foxer start up his 3-2. Bioice finally starts up his 2-2. And is also grabbing the infestation pit, so Ultras eventually. Foxer's kind of maneuvered his way into a setup where you just macro, and then add on your tech lab, so you start to add on Marauders, which he should be doing. And then you do just a couple of double drops. There's definitely a phase of macro TVZ where this happens. And some of the best Terrans in the world can kind of make that phase look a lot less passive than some other Terrans. You know, macroing and double dropping isn't the worst thing usually, but if it's Maru or someone doing it, then it actually is kind of really scary. But definitely Foxer should be adding on Marauders, not just because Ultras are going to be in the way. You know where the ZvT is headed if you can't break them in the mid-game. You know Ultras are going to be on the way. But also because it just starts to make your army a lot chonkier. Like, the way that the Zerg has to take engagements against a lot of Marauders does change up as well. Marines clearing up creep, getting into the drone line. Widowmine's getting some pretty great hits on the Lings. But eventually cleaned up. About 2 medevacs will be able to continue harassing as Bioice is being pulled left and right. Trying to split up his army now. Finally going to be able to deal with both of these. But with that lacking anti-air, it's always going to be difficult to really punish Foxer for doing this. Medevac barely alive. Foxer's got a 5th base on the way, 6th base immediately replacing that 5th. Bioice does finally make some Corruptors, so he got a Spire in there, but I don't think his options... I don't think he go into a Greater Spire. It's pretty tricky to do on like a TVZ up against Bio, and it's actually almost suicide against Mech, to be honest, but... I do think he just wants some anti-air to finally punish these drops, or just also punish a move out, you know? Like, the medevacs usually get free. And that is, you know, expensive building units that could have been Liberators type deal, so I do like him adding that on, but that means there's still no Ultralisk Cavern. Bio is going to clear this up. Yeah, well enough. All the Widowmines already shot their shots. Corruptors come back to take care of the medevacs, and that is actually finally a sweet moment there for Bioice. Not just grabbing the army and pushing that back, but also grabbing most of the medevacs there. kind of making up for some previous bad engagements. In fact, Foxer is now the one that's struggling to keep up with the macro. Fantastic early game, fantastic mid game, but his late game is starting to look a little bit weak. He only just recently seems to have added on his tech labs, and I don't see that many Marauders at all in the production tab, despite having blue cool minerals. Bioice is really turning this around. I think Foxer, was getting a little over-eager in the mid-game. I don't think he was actually capable of pushing when he was pushing. I understood his urgency, though, because, yeah, if you catch them when their injects are bad, when their banelings aren't morphed, when their creep spread is down, then I totally get that. Definitely good opportunities for Terran to push in, but he actually didn't have, you know, a big enough army to really continue pushing in like he did, or enough Widow Mines to continue pushing in. And when he finally had a decent number of Widow Mines, they actually all got popped. So, anyways, and then that's fine enough if you have a very smooth transition to the late game, but I don't think that Foxer did, actually. He's going to lose this right side base as Bioice just commits a bunch of banelings on top of it, so loses the base and 20 SCVs. Looks like a drop has been cleared up to the left side as well, and Foxer, yeah, just didn't have as strong as a transition as, you know, some of the best Terrans in the world, honestly. You know, a Clem would have made the transition look natural, like he was in charge the entire time. Like, I didn't mean to kill you in the mid-game anyways, it's fine. But Clem also has one of the best TDZs in the goddamn world. So for a lot of other Terrans, I mean, this moment, that moment, I guess, is kind of past, but that moment of going from Marine Widow Mine to, like, you know, General Bio Widow Mine against late game Zerg, it is one that a lot of Terrans are going to feel uncomfortable in doing. And I do think we saw a lapse of that otherwise, like his build order was very good, his mid-game build order was very good, and then there was like a lapse. There was a reminder that we weren't actually watching Marine King. We aren't actually watching the North American Clem, even though Foxer is playing very, very well. Has definitely found a weakness. Bioice now feeling pretty comfy, maxed out. Not a lot of banks, so I'm not going to say he's like super comfortable. And the creep spread also is not, you know, really where you want it to be. It's like enough to work with, but could be a lot better. Game's certainly not over in either direction, but sometimes when you see that momentum really not just grind to a halt, but even kind of push back against the Terran, you do see the Terrans like just from there very quickly lose all momentum, lose all engagements, and that's what I'm a little concerned of. I've seen this, I've been witness to this in the past. And I kind of started with that planetary getting bopped by a billion banelings. This orbital could lift off and live, but I don't think he's going to be paying attention to that so much as he's paying attention to getting his army the heck over here. Orbital did die to the right. Now the planetary is going to die as well. Damn, man, he had enough banelings, so like that actually went down a lot faster than I thought it would. What the hell? I mean, building armor wouldn't affect it anyways, so it's not a building armor thing. He just had more banelings than I thought he did, I guess. Oh, that's not so good then. Lots of bases going down. Drops not really working out. Bioice is, I mentioned this. His bank was not impressive, so he's definitely not in a position to just go lol, banling. As he struggles to remax right now, he might have reminded himself like, oh shoot, maybe I did overinvest. And now Foxer, you know, I was pointing out his lack of Marauders, what, 3 minutes ago? Well, he certainly made up for that, didn't he? It's like all Marauders. So, as I was saying, this really changes up how the Zerg player takes engagements, right? Like, those vulnerable Marines, you're hoping for, like, one Baneling hit to go your way, and you're like, boom, gotcha. With all these Marauders, the Banelings are no longer your magic answer to kind of everything. They're not going to magically win you in engagements. They're actually going to, I mean, either be in surplus to an insane degree, so, you know, the trades actually start going favorably for the Terran, because you're wasting so much gas on the Marauders that don't quite die. Or you need to get, like Banelings in the heart, plus a big old Ling wrap around, because Marauders definitely don't kill Lings very fast. And these Lings are, cracklings. Foxer is struggling to get his own bank. He has kept the supply above his opponent, as Bioice was also, for a time there, he was really struggling on gas. Now it's the opposite. I think he's just struggling on larva injects right now. But Foxer is actually even lifting over his natural, and this could survive for a decent time if he really does have the attack. If he's gotten back the momentum, then he is both protecting his 5th base as well as attacking into Bioice's, and that is ideal for a Terran player. But every time Bioice tries to do a run by, he's trying to interrupt that flow, he's trying to interrupt that dynamic. command center was fully repaired, but the factory might still burn down. That would be, you know, that's kind of still important. One of mine's always going to be important to TVZ. This also is, I guess, showing some of those weaknesses of Oxide that I was talking about in the PVZ matchup. Now we see in the TVZ matchup, going left and right can be very difficult to do. Even if Terran armies are like a little bit, not just faster, it's not so much it, but that they're just better in smaller clumps a lot of the time. But, 42 SCVs. Oh my gosh, where is he even losing SCVs? Oh, they rallied back from the Lynx. Foxer might just be dead. I mean, it's literally down to that, well, I got a better army, so, you know, I hope I win. He is trying to replace SCVs, but these consistent run-bys have been really digging into him. And he's only on, what, 3 orbitals? 3 orbitals? That's literally it. He scans to reveal a very healthy left side and 2 ultras guarding it, so a drop will work out there. Apparently an attack on the right side. Woodermine's getting some decent shots, it looks like, and that was just a lot of bio for Bioice to move into. I mean, I think that was a little overzealous. I don't think he was actually in a position to engage on top of the Terran. It was all about the Terran trying to win with his maxed out, or not maxed out army, sorry, his better army because he had no SCVs, but those fungals, absolutely brutal. The army was already stimmed and hurt, and then the Bailings connect. Oh god, okay, Bioice is fine. He is fine. Foxer played a damn good early in mid-game, but couldn't keep up the pressure to actually pull it through. I'm still impressed, but now I'm also impressed by Bioice's perseverance, actually lasting long enough to get to this point, get to 21 minutes after an absolutely brutal first 10 minutes of the game. And he's definitely got it now. GG. Bioice will continue on facing Riser now.